I don't want to be told to draw within the lines. I don't want to be told what colors to use in life. I am, I think at 45, almost 46, realizing that I am a horse that is not allowed to be corralled. That is just who I am.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right, right? A podcast for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with a beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in.
Hi guys, I am doing it solo-ish today. Cheryl had some life things happen, so it is going to be just me, Colleen, hosting solo, which is great because I'm not actually solo. I am here with the most amazing person in the entire world, and I am so lucky that she, in a pinch, was able to just jump on here. And here's going to be something very interesting about this episode, is that this amazing woman and I sound almost identical on air and on phone and whatever. So that's like a little hint about who it is. Okay, so I'm going to do the intro. Cheryl usually does her intro, and so if I fuck it up, it is fine. Okay, so today we have a very, very, very special guest, and I am like going to probably try not to cry the entire time. But we have Crissy Whalin here today with us, and she has been in radio since 1997 as producer, as an on-air host, as literally every job that you could have in radio, she's done it. She has been a music and film interviewer for radio and international TV. And she has a political podcast right now called Should Be a Morning Show, which it absolutely should be a morning show. And also, in addition to all of that, she has a travel Instagram page called Single Mom Budget Travel. She's a phenomenal mom to a 17-year-old boy. And the most important thing about her is that she is my big sister. And I am just like, woo, this is going to be amazing. So welcome. And all of you, her name is Chrissy, her name's Christina, but I'm going to call her Steen because I don't know what else to call her otherwise. And that's just how it goes. So don't get confused. There's only two of us here. Hi, Steen.
Hi. The more confusing part is that I'm Steen and you're Bean.
I'm Steen and I'm Bean. You're Steen, I'm Bean. And our names are Colleen and Christina, or Crissy and Leanie, or Steen and Bean, which is very, very confusing.
It's actually Colleen and Christina, Crissy and Leanie, Steen and Bean. Right?
Steen and Bean.
So like, or Stina, like
Stina.
It's just there's too many names.
There's too many names. People used to ask our mom how many kids she had because she would call us all these different names all the time. They're like, how many kids do you actually have? So it's very confusing.
The best part is ignoring her when she would just yell from the other room, and you're like, I don't know if that was Steen or Bean, but I'm going to ignor that.
It was just, all we could hear was the een, and we're like, I think it was you. It was you.
Nope, it's you. It's coming.
Oh my God. Okay. So I called you like in a pinch yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, Cheryl isn't going to be here. Please be on my show. But we've been actually wanting you to be on the show for the entire time that we have had this show because
thank you.
For me, you are like the epitome of what our show is about. Basically, we appeal to and talk to and speak to high achieving women who have done phenomenal things, but their story is never linear. Like, we know that, like, nobody's story is linear. And, that we talked a little bit pre-show, like, we talk a lot about like resilience and persistence and like, we get to these points in our life where we do the things that we say we're going to do, but like, it's never always how we thought it was going to go. And it's never like just a straight path to success. So I have known you for literally every single day of my life, but I want the world, or at least our listeners and our like 4 male listeners that listen, to know everything about you. So what we usually say is start at the beginning. So I know there were 3.5 years of your life that were awful because they were without me. But tell us, wherever you want to start, tell us about your career, your journey, if you will, and like how you got to where you are right now, which is like a badass, like producer, podcast host, travel extraordinaire, also has lots of other jobs that people don't even know about. And you've raised this like amazing 17-year-old dude now who used to like be our little buddy boo peanut boy.
He's no longer a peanut.
He's no longer, and you've done it all by yourself, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. Well, that's an awesome intro. I don't know if I've had an intro like that before.
There you go.
But I guess I get to earn that intro since you know everything about me. So, should I start with basically, I think I was probably like one of the more extra children ever. I literally thought I was 40 when I was like 5.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, like not being linear, but also like total transparency. I'm a high school dropout. So I have a lot of this in my life, like a lot of ups and downs or waves, in that like I skipped 8th grade because I was
Yeah.
very smart. And
Right.
then I dropped out of high school because
You're very smart.
basically I I hated it, but also our family was going through a lot of trauma, and we were losing our business, and our parents were in a very uncomfortable divorce/separation situation, and shit was just real. I hope I can
Yeah.
swear. Is that okay? And I had like a super successful babysitting circuit at the time. And so I was just like, I remember like, I didn't even like, our mom didn't even really know how I was supposed to afford my junior years
Right.
at Marin Catholic, because even on scholarship, we were on scholarship. That's like literally, it was just like the lowest of the low point as a
Yeah.
family, which I think is like,
Right.
it's okay to say that shit, and it's okay to
Sure.
be honest about it, right? So I like was basically like, I'm gonna drop out and just go to work. And of course, mom was like, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I have 2 parents. I'm gonna go to the other one for permission. And dad was like, well, you've always wanted to be a businesswoman. And I was like, that's true. I've always wanted to be 2 things, like
Yeah.
Lucille Ball and a businesswoman. And I don't want to be
She
told.
was a businesswoman.
She was a fucking businesswoman.
Yeah.
I don't want to be told to draw within the lines. I don't want to be told what colors to use in life. I am, I think at 45, almost 46, realizing that I am a horse that is not allowed to be corralled. That is just who I am.
Yeah.
And so dad, I mean, basically you and I raised ourselves, not to take anything from our parents, but that's like a typical thing for like Gen X and older millennials, is that like our parents worked and we were just like, we made our own food. I was already at, I think 14 or even 13 babysitting like for 4 different families across Marin County. And I was taking buses and going to work at other jobs too. And then, so when I dropped out, I basically just said, I'm going to get a work permit and I'm just going to go to work. And I did. And I worked 3 babysitting jobs. I worked at Old Navy and I worked at a children's acting school. And I was like,
And it was like Old Navy had just opened. I remember that. You were like one of the first people to apply.
It was the first Old Navy in Northern California, and it was like one of the first Old Navies in the country. They had one that we had to drive to in the East Bay. That was like the initial test model for Old Navy, which is a part of Gap Corporation, which I think was like one of the more like pivotal experiences in my life, because Old Navy and working for a corporation, I was kind of able to see at literally 15 years old, how things are run, where like what you can do within a company, how to do customer service, because Gap Corporation was really, a lot of the training that we got was customer service and solving people's problems, right? So for example, if somebody came into Old Navy, and this is before, like, there is no customer service anymore really in that level of store, but at the time that was going to be their point of difference, right? And we all wore headsets.
I fucking remember the headsets.
Remember the headsets?
So cool.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of having 10 million different names, there was 2 Christinas, a Christy, another Christy, a Crissy, and a Kristen. And so they called me Cherry because I had red hair. And it was like the only way to delineate all of us in the store. And
Oh my
because you
God.
would be like, Cherry, I need you to come to the, dressing rooms. And boop, I'd come to the dressing rooms. So, because you remember, because Esther, my friend that I worked with, she called me
Yeah.
Cherry because that's what everybody called me.
Yeah.
So in that experience was, like growing up, like I was taking care of you, right? We were, and taking and babysitting. I very much love children. And I feel like, though, my personality is somewhere between like Mary Poppins and the Trunchbull, like in between that is like my range, because like I want to have fun. And also maybe like someone's dumb uncle. I get very dumb uncle. I have to be put
Yeah.
in place by you with your own children.
Yeah. I'm like, stop it. Stop riling them up.
I know, I'm somewhere between like WWE dumb uncle and like the Trunchbull. So there's a long,
Well,
but
and
I
some
love.
of that is because we raised ourselves and also were raised by like random fucking people. Like, why
Yes.
were we going to WWE, like WrestleMania, WWF at the time?
WWF.
WrestleMania when we were like, I don't know, 13 and 8. Like, as two
Because
little
I
girls.
loved it. Admittedly, that was my thing, but also because we had uncles. Our parents are both the oldest of 5, so we always had uncles and cousins rolling in through our house. And so I'm working at the Gap. I'm 15. I'm learning things as an Old Navy Gap Corporation, and I was learning about some things that I think are really critical. Is like I've used in every job I've had, and also comes in very handy when you're interviewing people that you've never met before, is that you immediately have to take this, like you go to the dressing room, somebody's got to, they have to leave there with a pair of jeans, because that's our job, right? Is to sell them at Old Navy a pair of jeans. And the difference between the Gap and Old Navy was Old Navy had all these different styles and fits.
Yeah.
And that if you left Old Navy and you couldn't find a pair of jeans that we hadn't tried hard enough, right?
Yeah.
And it was really like a really cool experience, because you had to listen to people. You had to immediately understand people's insecurities, how they've viewed themselves, and they're vulnerable, and they're, trying on jeans, which is literally a traumatic experience, particularly for women, but also for men. Like, it's like, you're putting on something that's cut on a paper doll and hoping it fits on your squishy body. Like, so a lot of it I learned really quickly was, a game of listening to people, giving them space for who they are, and then also making them feel good, which is like something that is like very important to me. And I loved that, right? Because we grew up and our mom had very bad body image issues that she kind of like imposed upon us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like there's got to be better than that. So it was like such a win. I'm not even kidding you. My favorite sales story at Old Navy was I sold a pair of black jeans to James Hetfield from Metallica, and I really just thought that was like the greatest day of my life.
First of all, shout out to the Bay, because there are so many famous people in the Bay Area that were like just walking around shopping at Old Navy, which is like so fucking random.
He lived in San Marin, and we were in Novato, so it was just like, I'm like, literally I can't forget it, because people like the entire store was like silent, and then it was like, I've got to get James Hetfield like 6 pairs of black jeans from the giant wall. I had to get up on the ladder. Like, it was like, I got this.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it was just funny, like, why is he even there? But it's just because Old Navy was there, and it was kind of new, and it was whatever. So from there, when we were 17 and you were 14, we moved to Los Angeles, right? We had to kind of pack up our stuff. Life wasn't going well. And we had a friend who was willing to help us have a second chance, and helped mom get a job in LA. And we really needed that, like your godparents bought us a car, like it was a full reset. And we moved to LA, and I'd always done voiceover and acting. Like, that was a through line through my entire childhood. Like, I loved being a ham sandwich. Like, even when I was a kid, I was in the backyard, like, making up routines and, like, you know.
We were constantly doing like Madonna routines.
Yes. And I was like, you're not getting it right. You're not getting it right. Like, I just feel like.
I was just like a chubby, shy kid. Like, I don't know.
I was like, this is not the routine for like a virgin. Okay. Like, you're like, I was like, why is a 7-year-old making her toddler sister dance around to Like a Virgin in the backyard? I don't know, but that's what we did. And our next door neighbor, who was older, would come over and like tweak the routines. And I just was like, yes, this is the shit. We moved to LA, and mom had this really cool job at one of the first internet service providers. And I was working at a preschool. Like, that's what I did. And I was a nanny. I had 2 jobs. So I was working at toddler university during the day out in East LA, and then I was a nanny for a lady who owned this flower shop in Los Feliz, which then I also worked at.
And they also eventually did the flowers for my wedding. Remember that? They
certainly did. And so I really like being busy, and I really like working, and I really believe in, I feel like I thrive when I'm productive, and I'm really like, that's just, and some of it has, become toxic, but that sometimes it's too much. But I really liked working. And then through an introduction through mom's company, because they were doing media buying, I was like, mom knew I had done voiceover, and that was like, I wanted to do something with that. And I had put together audio tapes and like whatever. But she was buying media on radio stations, and she was like, why don't you come and work this media event and like network? One thing that I think that I learned from our mom that was very significant is the power of networking and meeting people. And because, I think the one thing that she always did was like, she could walk into any room and talk to whoever was in the room, right?
Anyone.
That's a super, I'm Val Whalin. That's a superpower skill. Yeah. Superpower skill.
Yeah.
And in some ways, because I had to be like this typical Gen X, far too responsible and adult as a child, like I just adopted that as well. But it's also my personality. Like, I would literally talk to a bare wall if I was in a room by myself and be like, you look good. Is that eggshell paint? So like, that's I think become a trait that we have taken from her that I think is a super positive trait. Our dad would like prefer to live on his own planet, which I understand. He's like high IQ, like everyone here is like a goodbye. I would prefer not to, which is hilarious.
You're not even on my level. You're not even on my planet.
Like, get out. This is a waste of my time, humanity. I don't recommend it. And so anyway, so I got the job there, and then was networking, and then at the time, I'm 17. I love rock music, and K-Rock is the station in LA that's the biggest rock station in basically the world, and I want to work there. But the lady that I became friends with, she goes to move to Kiss FM, which is the biggest radio station in the world. It's a pop station. It's the most famous station. It now has Ryan Seacrest. Prior to that, it had Rick Dees, and it's known in the radio industry as the biggest station in the world. It's the marker for everything. In fact, other countries have named their stations Kiss FM to be Kiss FM, right?
Right.
So she goes over there, and she's like, hey, I can probably get you a job in promotions, which I was like, great. I will literally do anything. You want me to send out prizes? You want me to file contest sheets? You want me to answer the phones? I just wanted to do anything to get into the place where I wanted to be. And I did. So I got the, and that was another pivotal thing for me, where my passion was rock music and alternative music and that whole scene. I love it. But there was something in me that knew that like that lifestyle and those things, those people would distract me from learning. And so, like cute rock stars, coming in every day, it's like, oh my God, like I didn't give a shit about pop stars. I didn't listen to that music. So I could focus on what are the things I need to learn at that job. And so I worked at Kiss FM, and, it was right at the height of like NSYNC and pop music and J-Lo and Mariah Carey and songs that you've heard, Ricky Martin, right? Like this whole thing is happening. And it was like a resurgence in pop music because, alternative had been a powerhouse for such a long time. And it was a really amazing experience to have. And I worked there and I just did whatever I could, right? So promotions, as in every company, and particularly in radio, we have layoffs, they get merged. We got merged with another company. And I just was like, I literally just want to be here. So what do I have to do? And like another woman who was the sales manager was like, I think you should be my assistant. And I was like, great. Yes, perfect. And I was doing voiceover the whole time for free. So I was the imaging voice for the station, and I was doing commercials. And then I'm now in the sales department, which has nothing to do with what I'm passionate about, but I'm learning something new. And I started hustling myself to be the commercial voiceover for all of their clients. So like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Macy's or whomever, like I'm doing the voiceover and I'm getting paid like actual commercial rates to do that while I'm making $20,000 a year, which I thought was hot shit at the time. I was like, whoa, I'm rich.
You were making like $2 an hour or something.
When I first started, I made $5.25 an hour, which after taxes was literally like $3, if that. And I like survived the entire first couple of years of my career just eating promotional shit and stealing Tony Roma's gift cards from McDee's. And we would go to Tony Roma's. All of the street team would go to Tony Roma's with these gift cards and like order everything we could with $100 gift card and then split it up into containers and take it home. Like we were smart. We were so smart.
And you at this time too, like, and I think this is important. You're probably 18 at this point. Like, you moved out of the house at 18. You were like, fuck y'all. Bye. I'm out. Goodbye. I'm not here anymore. And so it's not like you're doing this. I think this is important because this was also what, like 98? 97? 98. Yeah. And like you went and got your own apartment in Glendale at 18 years old, right? And so not only are you making $3 an hour after taxes, but you're also paying rent and like paying your utilities and your car, because you have to have a car in LA. It wasn't like the Bay Area where you could bus everywhere, right?
No.
And like doing anything. Like I think what is so and I know your story and like it continues. Like the thing that differentiates you and differentiates me and differentiates like people who do these types of things is like, one, you're fucking scrappy, and two, you're willing to see you see an opportunity when it comes up. And I think that's something that not everybody can see, right? You're like, oh, I wanted to be in rock music is what I love. And you could have very easily been like, Kiss FM, that's fucking lame. I'm not going over there. That's not what I want to do. It's not part of my vision. But you were like, nah, I'm going to do it. And then you did it. And then you like, oh, there's an opening in sales. Okay, I'm going to do it, right? And I just think that is like when we talk about like how do people get where they are, that's such a really key part of everything that you've done is and you're only in the very beginning because you're only 18 at this point in the story. But like, I think it's important for people to know, like very early on, you were willing to see what an opportunity could be or willing to experience what an opportunity could be. And I think that differentiates you from so many people. So
thank you. I think also too, because I removed myself from like a typical, going to high school. I went to a college prep. So like all the kids that I went to high school with, they went to college. That was the whole point of that particular school that I went to. And I'm still friends with quite a few of them because I love people. And I think I'm a people collector. That's just part of my personality. I don't agree with the statement, no new friends at all. I'm just like, bring on more friends, like more, bring them. I love you. And so I think because I had stepped out of what traditional framework was, like I didn't have, I remember in high school in sophomore year, they made us do this like career wheel thing where you like, because the career counselor is trying to figure out where you fit in.
Also because there was no internet at the time.
Also, there was no internet, right? So you were either taking something in Cosmopolitan or Teen Magazine, like trying to fill that out.
Add your points up.
Yeah, or your career counselor had this like wheel test that you did. And he like came back to me and he's just like, so something in business and entertainment, and have you ever considered being a cruise director?
What the fuck?
And I was like, I was like, Mr. Bia, like his name was Dita Bia. That is not my dream. But having said that, when I think about being a cruise director and all that you have to do and being in charge and being
Yeah.
entertaining and welcoming
Yep.
people and traveling to
Customer
unknown
service.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah, customer service. I'm like, well, maybe he was right to some degree. And a love of travel is certainly a part of my story, right? So I always think about Dita Bia telling me to be a cruise director. I was like, oh my God, my mother will die. We're fucking trying to get through this college prep and she's paying for it and doing
We're
church
scraping gum
bingo.
off the bottom of the fucking desks. So it's like,
Yeah, we're like church bingoing and doing, whatever. Cruise director. Great. That's it. That's exactly it. And so in Kiss FM, I'm working there. I'm learning. I'm understanding how radio works and business works and seeing mergers and acquisitions and learning about what that looks like. And I'm still always doing the thing that I love on the side, which is like, doing voiceover and being creative and stuff like that. So there's that. And then it comes to like a screeching sort of like bump in my road, which is a brain tumor, as you know, right? So I find out at like the age of 19 that I have this brain tumor on my pituitary gland. And I mean, thank God I had this job because I had health insurance through the job.
Yeah.
And, it's one thing to be told you have a brain tumor, and then my particular type of brain tumor was like, you're never going to be able to have children. If you don't take care of this, you're going to die. But if you take care of this, it's probably going to mean like you're going to be on medications or you're going to have this major surgery and blah. I was like trying to like digest all this at 19 with, you and mom and dad and like people around me are just like, what? And some people didn't believe me. And it was just like, I was like, I really just came in here because I thought I was pregnant, like, and they were just like, no, you're not pregnant. You may never have kids. And that was like, I think that was the hardest part for me because like I always wanted to have kids, or I always thought like that would be part of my lifestyle. And so then I like switched this weird mindset of like, I'll be the greatest cool aunt. Like, okay, won't have that. A friend of yours, her mom had heard about this surgery that was very new at the time, totally a fluke thing.
Such a weird thing because I remember my friend Kristen Barclay, her mom came up to our mom at a basketball game. And I remember specifically she said, she literally handed mom a piece of paper. I think it was like a scrap piece of paper with a phone number on it. And it was like, I heard that this doctor does laser surgery. That's what she said. Does laser surgery for this type of brain tumor.
Right.
And mom was like, okay, right? But it's not what he did at all, right? But then we called him and
yeah.
Go ahead.
And it was, I think that's so funny. I didn't even know the laser part in there. What it was is endoscopic, right? And it was at the time, we're talking 1999, right? So 1999, 2000. And it is where they have the tiny camera. And so prior to that, where you would have the surgery would leave you with like a Cheshire cat sort of like Joker thing because they had to cut your whole thing and lift your head in.
Very invasive.
Was super invasive. So they always do the drugs first. And the drugs have all these other side effects. And I went through all that treatment. They're similar to like when you're taking chemo and shit like that, they're shrinking the tumor. My hair fell out in my back, like the back of my hair all fell out. And it was pretty gnarly. The drugs, I had 2 different kinds and they were kind of gnarly. And that was like kind of a literal hard pill to swallow and figurative hard pill to swallow because I thought I don't know if I could do this my entire life. Like this medication is, some people don't have a bad reaction to it and they do stay on that medication. I wasn't having a good reaction to any of them. And so anyway, thanks to Kristen's mom, we, again, taking the opportunity, I went and talked to this doctor, Dr. Shahanian at the Skull-Based Institute at Cedars-Sinai, having spoken previously to the head of endocrinology at UCLA, who was basically like, sorry for your problem, bitch. Like, deal with it.
Yeah. He was like, you're going to have to take this.
Yeah, I said the pills, they really upset my stomach. And he was like, well, you can shove them up your vagina. And I was like,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like, he was such an asshole. Always get a second opinion.
Yeah.
Now I write for a health show that I've written for and worked on for like 15 years. Top tip, get a second opinion
My opinion.
always, no
Yeah.
matter what. And don't stay with a doctor you don't like. So yeah, I have this brain tumor. I go get this totally new type of surgery. It changes my life
Yeah.
completely. And I move in with a roommate because I'm like going out and partying with her every night of the week anyway. And we're like, why are we like trying to like, we're still rent, like we still don't make it very good money. So we moved into this super dope apartment in Los Feliz, which was before it was, I mean, it was trendy, but now we just literally paid $600 each for like the
Yeah.
best apartment in Los Feliz. Like, it's embarrassing, with a parking spot. I had an underground parking spot for my truck. And so, we both decided that like we needed a vacation. I was like, I literally need a vacation. Like, all I do is work, and I've had this massive brain surgery, and I went right back to work, like classic American. I have like
Right.
brain surgery. I can't even see. I'm wearing like these black goggles because my eyes don't work because, like I've had real brain surgery. So you come out of it and you're like, can I lift my hand? Is that my hand? And like my eyes were double vision for like 4 weeks. And, I was like, how
But
does
I'll go
this
back to
work?
work.
Yeah,
Here
and
we
then you're
go.
like, where's Chrissy? And I'm like, I can't drive to work. And they're like, that's fine, we'll get the street team to come pick you up. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So the street team came and picked me up so I could get back to work. And I went to Australia on that vacation because basically Amy and I were convinced we could find some carbon copy of Heath Ledger. And she had a friend there. And so we went and we stayed with Jamie, and Jamie and Yvette, his wife, changed my life. Jamie became basically my best friend and sort of adopted brother. And along the journey, you just like you meet people, and situations and people can change your life. And I was walking with Amy, and we were in Sydney on New Year's Eve, and it was like I had this deja vu freaky thing, and I was like, God, I think there's a police station around the corner. And she's like, okay, great, because we need to make a phone call because we lost Jamie. There was a police station around the corner.
Oh my God.
So that was really weird. And then I was like walking on the beach in Newcastle, Australia, and I looked at Amy and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to move here. And she was like, I think you are too. This is so weird. And then I went back to LA, worked at Kiss
Yep.
FM, and spent a whole year trying to get a job in Australia in radio, and like pitching myself and calling and cold calling and emailing. And there were people who were just like, why do you want to move there? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm supposed to do this. And so I'm going to do this. And even mom was like, you just want to get away from me. And I was like, no, no, this is my, it's not about you, lady. Main character energy over there. It was my journey, and I just knew like I had to move to Australia. So a year goes by, I get a job in Australia. It's like this dream job, but I got to move to Melbourne, a city I've never been to, not Sydney, which is where I thought I was going to go. And then go to Melbourne, and it's like totally life changing, and it's exactly where I should have been, and all the things that I wanted to do, and amazing people, incredible experience. I'm pitching to ad agencies that represent the entire Asia Pacific on major brands, like Nissan and, Ford and Disney Films. And I'm winning these major pieces of business on behalf of the sales team, but I'm actually in promotions so what I'm doing is I'm working with programming to create promotions that can be executed on the air and sponsored without them sounding super clunky and being shitty and hard to execute and devaluing what the sound of the radio station is. And, so that was a really cool job. And then I got into a relationship that was pretty gnarly and decided I needed to come home. And I came home, and my old music director, 1 month after being home, still completely devastated. I'm 24 years old. I go out to dinner with my music director from Kiss FM, and he's like, oh, I want you to meet this guy, Byron. He's Australian. I was like, I literally do not want to meet a single Australian man. Like, get the fuck out of here. Why did you do that to me?
Inside story is like, he called you and you were like, I remember we were at mom's house.
Yeah.
And you were like, he wants me to meet this fucking Australian guy. Like, it's so embarrassing. This guy's gonna be so like, you're just like, I cringe city. Like,
yeah, I just wanted to see Michael. I did not want to meet some Australian dude. And I went out with Michael and Byron. And Byron and I had like an instant connection. Just a footnote, we are not married anymore. But we had an instant connection.
Spoiler.
And it's so weird that we'd never met. And basically that night, it was like, I think you're like the person I'm supposed to marry. And so, like, again, just me being me, I was like, well, that's it. I'm supposed to marry this person. And I did marry that person. I married that person, like, almost a year later, but I married Byron. And Ben Byron and I, because we were both in radio and he's very similar to me, like whatever I've got to do to coming up with new ideas. Byron and I created a radio format that was rock and hip hop, and we sold it to a company who was willing to test the format in a California radio market that we needed, that had like large male population of 18 to 34 with a heavy presence of military and blue collar, but also alternative, and also money, like had money to spend, because our pitch was that 18 to 34-year-old men were underserviced in the radio market, and that they weren't just that the reason Apple and iPods and all these things at the time were stealing from radios because radio was too formatic, and we were playing our station had rock and hip hop and classic rock all on the same station. And essentially the way I pitched it at the end of the day, when like we kept going up there to pitch it, I was like, listen, this is not a hard sell. This is what they play in strip clubs. This is what they listen to in strip clubs. And it is what, and these guys, they've got money. They spend money on trucks. They spend money on PlayStations. They don't get married as early anymore. They have money to burn, and you are missing the opportunity because you are singularly focused on women grocery buyers. As we're going into an economic decline, you've got to find new people. The people that you've got are the men that you're unwilling to talk to. So this one guy, Mike Anthony, was like really into formats and research. He gave us a shot. And so Byron and I told no one we were married, and we did a radio show and ran an entire radio station in Monterey, Salinas, Santa Cruz, California. And after 1 year of that, we won like best show. And it was the first few months was people calling us saying super racist, crazy things because they didn't want black people's music mixed with white people's music. So for everything that's going on in America right now, I can tell you Byron and I had the crystal ball glimpse of that. Yeah. Right? It was like, whoa. And then we just were like pushing back like, dude, it's in your iPod shuffle. Tell me your iPod shuffle doesn't have Led Zeppelin, Jay-Z, and Linkin Park. Tell me. Show it to me. And they were like, well, it does, but it shouldn't be on the same station. And I was like, why? Yeah. Why? So you want to keep paying? You want to keep paying for those songs? Well, we'll just put them on here, and you can listen to them for free.
Yeah, because that's why you gotta like download each song for like $1.99.
$1.99, right? Yeah. So Byron and I do that, and then we're sort of like 3 years into our marriage, and that is hard. Do not recommend necessarily working every day. And no one on the radio show could know we were married. And it was just like, oh, and I got pregnant. And I'm telling you, I got pregnant because we went to go buy a car because our busted ass used Jeep that we had broke down finally. And we had a sponsorship with Volkswagen, and they had given us a turbo Beetle, and it was amazing. And I was like, let's just buy the Beetle. We've driven it for 6 months. Let's just buy the Beetle. And Byron was like, well, I mean, you said you want to have a child. And I was like, oh, we're never getting pregnant. This is not happening for us. So we buy the Beetle, and like a month later, I'm pregnant. So like now we have this completely impractical.
Also, side note, Byron is like 6'5". Driving this like yellow. It was yellow, wasn't it?
No, it was black. It was black. It was black. It was black. The Kiss FM bug was yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had this black.
Man who cannot be inconvenienced by anything that is small. Driving this tiny car.
It had like racing seats because it was a racing edition, so they were like bucket low, and he like loved it, and it was just ridiculous. And then so I'm pregnant. We're 6 months pregnant, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, we have to move to Los Angeles. I cannot have our child here. And he's like, okay, Chrissy. And I'm like, nope, this is fine. We can do that. We're going to tell our boss that we're going to do the radio show from the remote studio because lots of broadcasters, we will build a remote studio. We are moving to Los Angeles. We are not going to have our baby here in Central California. Like, this is not happening. This is not the vision. I've had a dream, whatever. We're going. So we go do that.
Yeah.
We moved to LA, we have our baby, we get divorced. Or we moved to, we have our baby in 2008. Economy hits the tanks. We get fired from our show, but we lose the radio station because they sell it or they switch it to some other format. And then they keep our show and they put our show on a couple of other stations, but it's like still not enough money. Byron gets an amazing offer in Sydney to do a morning show in Sydney. Zephyr's 6 months old. We moved to Sydney. I'm coming back and forth doing radio or doing movie interviews because I'm being paid for that. And we can't say no to any money at this point. And then we get divorced. Like literally Zephyr's 16 months old. And Byron's like, I'm done. I don't want to have this marriage anymore. And I'm like, okay, like you can't convince somebody who doesn't want to be married to be married to you.
Right.
That's ridiculous. So Zephyr and I stayed with our mom for a few months, and then I found an apartment in LA for Zephyr and I. And again, it's like, you're constantly hustling. It's so super hard. Everything's really expensive. I found us an apartment in Park La Brea that was super cheap. And that worked for us for a while, and we lived there for a while. And I worked remotely before other people were ever working remotely. So I got a job, which is a job I still have now, with John Tesh, booking guests and writing stuff for his national radio shows through my friend Betsy, who had worked at Kiss FM. And radio people kind of do that. They kind of stay in network, right? They're always networking, and it's like being in a sorority, essentially, where you can network.
It's a family. Yeah, it's a family.
It's definitely a family. And so, very long story here, but basically got to that and lived there for a while, put Zephyr in a Montessori school, and I did work from home, and I did my movie junkets, and everything was very close by. And then Byron wanted to see more of Zephyr. So when Zephyr was 3, we moved to Melbourne for 6 months to see how that would go. It did not go well because you should not try and be in close quarters with somebody that you're divorcing. And we hadn't finalized our divorce at that point. That was an interesting experience. So we came back, had to start from square one again in LA. Got myself a little apartment back in LA. And basically I went and looked at this apartment. It was this older woman who had owned this little building. And I said, well, my son is supposed to go to this Montessori school that's just 2 blocks away. And, so I'm just trying to look, but I can only spend $1,400 on rent. And she was like, okay. And I said, oh, are you sure? You could rent this thing for $2,500. She's like, I was a single mom. She's like, I'm going to give you this at $1,400 because I know what it's like to be a single mom and to need a fresh start. I've been there many times.
Yeah.
And so bless Anne, she gave me that apartment on Orange Street that I really needed. I walked Zephyr to school every day and then, continued working and, just progressed. And then I ended up getting a job doing political radio on KGO in San Francisco, but out of the LA studios. So, I went back and I worked at iHeart again. So I worked at Kiss FM again in sales. And then my old program director, who had done the rock thing with me and Byron, the rock hip hop thing with me and Byron, called me and was like, I want you for a show. I'm doing a political show and I need you on there. And I was like, fuck yeah, because the one thing that I think you will know is that the one thing men and women always say to other women is don't talk about politics. And yet the one thing that I firmly believe is that women should be talking about politics more than anybody else because it's always our bodies and our rights that are in the political conversation being taken away.
It's not about us.
Everyone's always talking about us and the things that we will get access to politically and through our government and through policy, but we're constantly told it's not attractive for a woman to talk about politics. So I was like, bring it. We covered the entire Trump-Hillary campaign for 2 years. That was so intense. And then in 2018, our company merged again and I lost my job. Keep in mind, the entire time I was working that show, I was also still working for John Tesh, and I'd picked up a gig and I'd created a gig out of these girls who came to me who are photographers that wanted Ryan Seacrest to do something with them. And what they did was they took beautiful high-end editorial photos of women, mostly celebrity women, as mermaids. And they were like, we don't know how to monetize this. And I was like, well, you have 500,000 followers of people saying to you, I want to be a mermaid, and you're only willing to shoot celebrities for free. That's insane. And I
Yeah.
created a whole business for them where they toured through the whole world. We went everywhere doing photo shoots. So that was my side hustle, that I was almost like making more money on doing mermaid photo shoots while I'm doing KGO and this other job. So then I lose that big KGO job, and I kind of like stepped away from mermaids a little bit and kind of reassessed what I wanted to do. And I was like, I'm going to run out of money. I don't have enough savings. It's 2018. My son's in 5th grade or 4th grade. He's graduating. He's going to go into 5th grade. He's going to turn 10. And I had taken Zephyr to Paris in 2016 after the elections.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Mom, I love traveling so much. And I loved traveling already. And obviously I'd lived in other countries. I said, maybe Zephyr, maybe when you're in 5th grade, I'll take you on a trip around the world. And I just like threw it out there. And I wasn't sure I meant it even at the time, but I was just like, well, I basically was like, when you're old enough to hold your own shit, like I'm not going to carry your shit around. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so that's where I lost this major job, and I was having a crisis, and I was trying to figure out my life, and just decided I made like, Oprah Winfrey, like manifest boards and whatever. And I was like, I really just want to travel and take Zephyr on this world trip. But like, I don't have, like, I just have I had like a 1.5 part-time jobs. And I was like, well, that's just like really impractical. And I remember I came to you and I was like, I think I'm going to do this. But it required that I just like basically give up my apartment and put all of my shit in your garage and leave my car, because I had known from moving overseas that you should never give up any type of like line of credit in the US. Because like when I moved overseas, I screwed that up. And you were like, yeah, do it. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to figure this out. I'm going to figure it out. I'm just throwing it out there. Mom's probably going to freak. Dad's going to say, great, live your dream, because that's like Dad's go-to. And I got to get Byron to say yes because I need permission. And I got to figure out how to pay for it.
Come back next week to hear how she figured it out and made the big move.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.